I guess we can get started. Thank you very much to all of you joining us today to our today's webinar with the title ChatGPT Prompting for Legal Professionals. I'm very excited about today's agenda, but as well our guests, our participants today. I'm being joined by Henrik Hjertstedt. He's a former M&A lawyer. Today, he's a general counsel at a multinational. He brings some years of experience to the table at law firms as well as in-house roles. But he's not only a lawyer, he's as well the author of a book, No Cost Contract Automation. And he's the innovator as well behind lawchatgpt.com. Really excited to have you today here at our webinar.
Thanks for that.
At the same time, I welcome Boas Loeb. Boas Loeb is an experienced AI and data product manager with extensive knowledge and experience in the fields of legal AI as well as legal tech. Currently, he's not only pushing the boundaries in the legal space, but as well in this coaching space. He wants to see what generative AI can do in that space. And with that, he's the co-founder of the platform aicoach.chat. Good to have you here today, Boas. I'm being joined as well by Nima. Nima, you're the program manager and community manager at IMAA. Really good to have you here today. I would ask you to say a couple of words about yourself as well as your organization.
Thank you very much, David. Warm welcome on my side to you, Henrik and Boas, our past attendees and new attendees on this webinar. We are delighted to do this with you. We are the Institute for Mergers, Acquisitions, and Alliances, and we do this as part of our community programs. So we are happy to do this with you this time.
Really great. Thank you very much, Nima. Last but not least, shortly about myself, I'm your moderator today. My name is David Bloch. I'm a trained lawyer. I'm one of the co-founders of Legartis, and today the company's CEO. Legartis is a legal AI company that focuses on the automation of contract analysis as well as contract review. All right, enough about all of us. Let's go into the agenda. We're going to hear some theoretical things about large language models, ChatGPT, different terms, get some know-how behind all that. And then we're going to dive into the prompting principles. How does one actually need to prompt? What do you need to take into account? And based on that, we're going to have a look at some examples, live examples where Boas as well as Henrik are going to guide us through. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the implications for the legal industry. Have a look at a live example as well in that context. And then you're going to have the possibility to ask questions. You're going to have actually the possibility to ask questions throughout the webinar. Please use our Q&A functionality in whatever format you are in, being that on Zoom or on StreamYard. We're going to make sure that we're going to answer most of your questions. If we're not going to get to all of them, we're going to aim to answer your questions after the webinar. So please use that functionality actively. All right. Boas, I've been saying this now for a couple of months. I read tons of stuff online, being that on LinkedIn or other platforms, and there's so many terms out there. It's even difficult for me to follow and to really understand everything and put it into context. Can you help us in that that regard?
I'm very happy to. I must say those terms are really also changing a lot as the technology is evolving a lot. I think a great example here is we're talking a lot about these large language models. What are large language models? Large language models are models that are trained on originally really just a lot of text. If we talk about a lot of text, just to imagine how much text. So all the Harry Potter books together, those are around 1 million words. The amount of text that is used to train those models is a factor of 1 million. So basically, every word, if you replace every word in all the Harry Potter books with, again, all the Harry Potter books, that's kind of the amount of text that was used to train these models. Nowadays, you might hear the term foundational model more often. This is because we are switching from just having these large language models that are trained exclusively on text to having more multimodal models that are trained on text, video, images, and sound. So different things. So that's why we call them more foundational models. There are really a lot of different foundational models out there. The number is growing. We talked about this before. Mistral released, for example, just a new large model this week. And Google released a few weeks ago Gemini Ultra, which is the largest currently model. Meta has like the Llama models, where we also wait for the next version. And of course, which we're going to focus on, this family of the models, of the GPT models, with GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 currently. Those are the GPT foundational models. Why do we call them foundational models? That's because what we do is we train those models, those foundational models, again on specific tasks. And that's where ChatGPT gets his name from, because it's a GPT model that has been fine-tuned, trained on this specific task of chatting. And we will come back to that a bit, but basically you have these foundational models. They're then being, again, fine-tuned to one specific task that they're getting really good at, or multiple tasks, and that's how we get to ChatGPT. I hope this gives a bit overview.
It definitely does. But now let's just delve in deeper into the possibilities for, of ChatGPT. From your experience and perspective, Henrik, what do you believe is the greatest potential of ChatGPT for legal professionals in their daily work?
Okay, so here we can see on the screen there's a few different areas where we can really benefit. I think first one is really the content drafting, and here we're talking about emails, clauses, agreements, and anything that you need to write, letters. It's excellent at doing this, and we'll see a little bit later how we can do this as well.
May I ask, Henrik, where do you see the limitations of that draft thing? Like, what can it not draft or not write?
I think it can. It depends how you're prompting it. It could. I would almost say it could write anything, as long as you give it the proper instructions to do so. Whether it be a simple email or a complex document, there's a little bit of limitation on the amount of output. Whereas sometimes it will shorten. Maybe we want longer outputs. So it won't do a 100-page SBA agreement. So you have to break it up into chunks there. So probably that's a limitation.
So the context window, this is also called often like the amount of text it can work with.
Yeah. So anyone hears the word context window, that's the number of words output that it will do. And usually it's around 4,000 if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean those get longer and longer nowadays. So,
yeah.
But
yeah. So as we go along and that expands this output, it will be able to do more complex documents. The other one that's I find very good is the research one. Now this is It doesn't replace all research. I don't think it replaces your legal databases that are out there, but it does. If anyone has been Googling law, they try and find some things on Google about a particular topic. This is a place to go instead to start with, and then maybe you go and have more fine-tuned a little bit about your legal research.
So may I ask, if we talk about this topic of using ChatGPT in research, there was this story a few months ago of this New York lawyer who I think had ChatGPT like write some case laws that he then put in that actually just did not exist.
Exactly. So this is the hallucination topic that people talk about. Because it is so good and it wants to perform well, it can make things up. So if you're doing research, it's only, you still need to verify all the content. If you ask it for case law, sometimes it will make up the cases. Always try and get the links or check the references that it provides as a next step. I mean, if you ask it about well-known cases, Donahue Stevenson, which is the negligence case, and things like this, then it is very good at working on that, because I think there's a lot of content on that. If it's an obscure case, you're trying to say, give me a case about a person that tripped over in the street in Zurich and the case about it, then it will make up a case about that. So it just depends a little bit what you're researching. But for general law, like legislation and finding parts of legislation, I think it's very good at that.
So it's a great starting point for your research, but you always have to check it again and verify it again.
Yeah,
it's great. And what do you mean with AI review here?
Now this is quite cool, because you can put in a piece of text or a clause and ask the AI what it understands about the clause. So maybe in the past you would use a colleague for this, where you would, hey, what do you understand about this clause I'm drafting, or I'm trying to do this particular thing? Does it make sense? You can actually do this with the AI. You can put the clause in there, ask it what the obligations are, what the rights are under that clause.
I think that's pretty cool. So you're really using like a third person that actually gets you an outside perspective on how to interpret a certain text, for example.
Exactly, and here again, we as it gets better, you can upload the documents now since a few months now. And you can ask a few questions about what's in the document. It does a good job. I've tested it on easy documents and difficult documents, and you know, it still has problems with the more complex documents. Doesn't, but it's for clauses where there's not as much text you have read through, then it's perfect.
And then you write translation. What do you mean, like language translation?
Yeah, language translation. So here you can. It does. I think it does all languages, basically, or hundreds of languages. If you start typing in English and then switch to a question in German, then it will give you an answer in German straight away. Or sometimes here in Switzerland, I would put a piece of German legislation in, and then ask it to translate that text. I did a test with some European legislation. It's actually good because it has all the European languages. You have a good reference there as well.
I mean,
double check.
So I remember when GPT-2 came out, what people also used to do is they use those models to translate from legalese, so legal language, into easy to understand language. Yeah. Is this also a form of translation you use sometimes?
Yeah, especially if I depending on the audience of my email, maybe. Especially lawyers have problems with the making complex emails difficult to read. And then because the point of writing an email is to communicate. If you have too complex language, then you're not communicating properly. You can allow this to help you. A typical one is write this so a 5-year-old would understand. That's a fun one to try.
Yeah, nice.
On any topic, not just legal topics.
And then, of course, there's summarization and many more ways you can use these models.
Yeah, and one that I think a really simple one that comes up again and again is that people are uploading documents or legislation into ChatGPT, and then they ask for a summary of the document. It's of course dangerous. You need to reference again, so you don't. But if you're running short of time, which most of us are, it's a good way to get a good summary of this.
Cool, great.
Really cool. Thank you very much for all these already real life examples, and it really shows that one just needs to try this, and that's actually what we want to do now. Let's jump right into action. Henrik, can you show our audience a little bit how you apply ChatGPT in your daily work?
Yeah, before we get there though, I'd like Boas to
true.
give us some
Prompting
theory
principles.
on
Sorry.
I'll go really quick. I think,
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
I think those are what we would like to share. Like, those are a few principles that kind of help you when you start working with ChatGPT. You will find a lot of ideas or concepts on how to do this. Outside, those are quite, what we show here are quite high level ideas, how to think about this, which we hope are helpful in doing so. The first principle when you are interacting with ChatGPT is think that you are chatting with a very fast junior lawyer. Now, there's this idea in here that you chat with a person, and it's not because the AI is a person, but this is because the AI has been trained to act like a person. So this is what it has been trained on, to act as if it is a human being. So treating it like a human being in that sense can really help you to go there very quickly. The other things in here is the very fast and the junior lawyer. So the AI has a lot of knowledge, but it is not an expert. It's not a senior lawyer. So treat it think of it like a junior lawyer that you can tell things, that you have to explain things, but you yourself have to still go over it and make sure that it really is all correct. The other thing is the very fast. You can tell a junior lawyer to write 10 pages, and it probably will take way longer than it does for ChatGPT to write 10 pages. So this is, I think, the first principle. Think you are chatting with a very fast junior lawyer. The second principle is to really give context, instructions, examples, and be precise. And I think this is also very similar than if you are working with a junior lawyer, you need to tell them what you expect for them. You need to give them clear instruction. You need to give them the context that they need to know so that they can actually do their job. There are a lot of these helpful concepts, like how you should prompt, for example, RISE, that I mentioned here, like give it first a role, then give it clear instructions, then give it a clear context, then define your expectations. This can be helpful, but also don't think you need to always do that. I think the important thing to remember is really only two things. One is give instructions, like say what you want it to do, and the other thing is give context. If you remember two things, then I would really try to remember those things, like instructions and context. And we will touch on all of this in the example in just a minute. I think the third principle, and this is mostly for ChatGPT, is to understand that what you have is a conversation. It's a process. So don't think, oh, I just write one prompt and I get the perfect result back. Think of it really as a process. Think of it as a conversation. So you write something, I would like X, Y, Z. You get something back and you say, well, this and this I don't like, so we can improve on it, we can iterate over it. And this is, I think, a very helpful way to think about interacting with ChatGPT. The fourth principle is that you are in control. So there's one way is you are responsible, but you are also really in control. Like you can say the model what you want it to do. If you are not precise, it will just jump to conclusions. It will just make assumptions what you want, but you can really control this. And to give you some ideas what you can control, for example, you can control the tonality. Do you want it to be more formal? Do you want it to be informal? But you can also control the context of what it knows. And I think really useful is really the format of the output that you get. That is, I think, always helpful to be aware that you are really in control. But I think we will show this in a bit much more concretely.
Yes. Now we're gonna actually dive in and go and see you two in action.
Okay.
So coming back to my question, Henrik, can you help us? Can you show us?
Sure. Good. We've prepared a little scenario for this to help us. We'll first go into ChatGPT. So you can see now we're in ChatGPT, OpenAI, and the model we are using is ChatGPT 4 here. This is the paid version. We're using the paid version because it 4 performs better than 3.5, especially on the legal topics.
So Henrik, let's take the example. No, this scenario. Let's say I'm the CEO. I come to you and I ask, well, there is this company in Hungary we want to acquire. We have very, very little time. I need this to be done as soon as possible. Let's take this as an imaginary scenario. Is this a place where you think, well, ChatGPT could actually be helpful in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you come to me like that. My problem is that I've never done anything in Hungary before, which usually could be the case in international M&A transactions. So one of the first things I would do as a lawyer would be to engage some local legal advisors. But anyone who's ever done that will know that you probably need to do conflict checks, and they tell you by the time you get the meeting set up and they run the conflict checks, it's going to be 3-4 days have passed already. So idea here is that maybe we can get something done beforehand, and then once we talk to the lawyers, we'll have a little bit more information about what is needed for the M&A transaction from a legal perspective.
So I'm pressuring. I need an answer now. I need information now. Henrik.
Okay. So Boas, I'll give me 10 minutes. I'll get back to you. So let's think about what we can do then. So and some of these examples then allow for these principles that we've talked about. So the first one I can think of, what are the steps in an M&A transaction? So let's see if ChatGPT even knows what an M&A transaction is. So you see here, it's starting to give us some answer. And it's talking about strategy development, target identification. So it clearly knows what an M&A transaction is, but this is very broad here. So I think this is where we really need to give it a little bit more context. Because we want this to be specific for Hungary, like a transaction, and my role is as a lawyer in the transaction. So it knows what M&A transaction is, but let's give it a bit more context here, as you were saying, Boas. So what are the legal requirements for conducting a share purchase in Hungary? So let's try this. So now we have put legal requirements. We're saying it's a share purchase. Boas, I hope we're doing a share purchase, and we're also doing Hungary here. So let's see.
So what you're doing now is you give it a bit more concrete information, a bit more context, so that it actually knows better what it is that you want.
Exactly. So we see here that, as expected, it's quite good results here. We're talking about due diligence, we should be doing the SBA, regulatory approvals. Now, this is one that's I'm very interested in, because regulatory approvals in an M&A deal usually can delay the transaction or even block the transaction we're thinking about. So we see here there's a few different things: competition authority, foreign investment approval. So now there's a little mention here about the legal requirements governed by the Hungarian Civil Code. So this is a little technical. So we're going to copy some of the text that are used and dig a little bit deeper into that. So let's ask, what are the provisions of the Hungarian Civil Code covering M&A? Let's see what we get for that. And to the audience, this is a live, we don't know exactly what the answers are going to be here, but let's see if we can get some information out here.
So you are using the model here like as an expert that gives you a certain overview over this topic that really uses the knowledge that it has provided.
Exactly. So here we see that it's actually summarizing some of the provisions, the M&A provisions in the Hungarian Civil Code. And here it's talking about Book 3, it's talking about Book 6. And this is the legal research I've been mentioning before. And just to double check this is correct, then what I would do is go to a search engine, and then we can actually find usually there's English transactions of these documents, and then we can find the actual a reference that we can check what's being said here. Now we could even say list the provisions of these clauses here. So this is how I would do a broad legal research. It's very good if before you speak to your external lawyers to do this and because then your questions are a bit more precise. You save money potentially because you have a lot of background already with this. But
so I saw someone, Esther, asked, would it not be quicker to just check PLC database in this case?
Well, maybe if you have the access to that. Not everyone has the access to that, and I sometimes find this is better results in there. If there's a country report on the PLC for Hungary for M&A transaction, that's good. But this here, you could actually tailor it to exactly what you want, because here we can say, here's another one. So if we summarize the key provisions of this, then we can actually get so we more perhaps this note in PLC doesn't give you exactly what you're looking for. Here you can ask the question and get the answer on it. So I'd use both in that context.
I think this also goes a bit into a question that's also being asked. Do you think this is like the perfect prompt and the best possible prompt to write this, or do you think you would need to add like this, for example, add a role here, add more context, or?
Yeah. So this is very broad still. It just gives you a quick overview of the landscape. You know that we'll be working with the civil code, but to really get into it, I prepared a little So we have some assumptions here, if you see on the screen. And what's good is when we're talking the details, this is where you use your experience to know which details are important and may change the way the transaction will be done. So, for example, is it an asset sale or a share purchase? What's the value of the deal? What sector is it in? Because we have protected sectors that are more sensitive. Is it listed company? Is it not? How many employees? And here was also saying that and I am a lawyer, so this is the role-based thing, but back to me, not using the AI as a role, but saying that what context and this is the expectation I have back. And then we also give it a few more details. The NDAs are already in place. So it knows that it doesn't need to cover the NDAs. Due diligence is complete. It knows it doesn't need to cover due diligence in its answer. Here, the new owner is from India, is another piece of information. You see here that in the approvals, foreign investment approval. So let's see, that's relevant as well. And then we're asking for that we want to report back to the boss how quickly we can do the deal and the process and transaction timetable. So this is quite now detailed and gives the context of the transaction.
This adds really a lot of context here, but also like what you expect as the result of it, what you would like to get. And I think this is also that I think this is a very nice example that makes it a bit clear. Traditional searches cannot deal with this amount of queries. If I Google something this specific, I will not find an answer. But that's really the strength of these models. Now, that they can really be customized and give an answer to specifically your concrete situation.
Exactly. So let's send this message now and see what we get back. So it's summarizing the inputs that we gave it. And it's because I asked it to give a process, it's giving headings and some topics within the headings. We're talking about signing to closing. This is important as well for me, because I know that we will not be signing and closing on the same day. So we would actually negotiate the SPA, we would sign it, and then we'd have some conditions precedent in there dealing with competition authority and foreign investment approval as well. So because we're working for this, the company purchasing will be Indian company, I would actually like to know a little bit more about that, the foreign investment approval. So let's ask it then so I see this, I read through, I see a topic that interests me, and then I just, in the prompts, ask for more detailed information about the foreign ownership approval. And here I also ask for references to legislation, practical details about application and approval times. And then also additionally ask it for examples when it has been rejected. Because here, Boas, if there's a showstopper here, I want to tell you straight away that we have this, because maybe we need to rethink the whole transaction. So let's see if there's some showstoppers here.
So you're basically using it first to get a broad overview of the topic, get generally sources. Then in the second step, you drill down. And then in the third step, you would probably go and verify those sources specifically. Because how much do you trust the outcome of ChatGPT directly?
It depends on the context here. I actually trust it quite a lot. But I know that for now, in this context, we're just you've just told me that it's urgent. I trusted enough to be able to say, hey, it's I'll probably go away and check a little bit more on search for this to make sure it's accurate. But I also know that it's definitely a question I need to raise with advisors on this transaction.
Henrik, could you make your window a little bit bigger?
Just the text a bit bigger.
Yeah, that'd be. Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, so here we have we have reference to the act, so we can go and search that. We see it requires investors outside EU, EEA, and Switzerland to get prior approval. And then we also see here that it could take up to 60 days, and it could be extended. So now I know that between signing and completing the deal, that we're going to have 2, maybe more months before we can close the transaction. And for my commercial team, that is probably important information. Set the boundaries clear in the beginning for this as well. And then here we have some practical considerations, and it didn't give such a good result on the rejections. So we would probably need to check a little bit more on the website there. But here we have quite some good information. I know already that this is going to have an impact on the transaction.
Let's say we want to now go from here and write a concrete, like a memorandum of understanding, for example. Is that something that ChatGPT would help you with?
All right. So now we've moved from doing some broad research on the topic, and now I need to deliver some specific documents for the transaction. And MOU, this depending on the policy, you're usually able to do that before you get your legal advice. So let's give it a go. I'll ask it to draft MOU. Notice here I'm not saying memorandum of understanding. And then I'm mentioning for the transaction. And then I'm mentioning the output format that I would like it in. So you remember the transaction that I wrote before was all these details, the 20 million, the IT services contract. I also asked it, I wanted to include a condition precedence. I just put CP about this FDI approval, and that it should have a clause in there about the transaction timing. And there's even a typo in here, transaction timing. So let's see how we go now. So it understands immediately we're looking for a memorandum of understanding, and CP is a condition precedent.
So and I think this is really like, this is also this conversation part, no? Like you are writing it here as part of the conversation, and it remembers what was discussed before. It will use the information that you had at some point of the conversation and include this in writing this answer.
Exactly, and it even understands the acronyms that you're using. And this is, as you expect a junior lawyer to understand what a CP is. Maybe not the first week, but after a few months, she would understand what's the terminology is.
That is great. Now you get this table.
Yep.
And just out of curiosity, let's say I have a template that I usually use for those memorandums. Is this something I could even add here? Like,
yeah. So then in this prompt here, when you do the prompt, you can attach the document here and ask it to use that as a base for the MOU.
That's really cool, I think, to see. So looking at the time, what would you do next with this?
Yeah, so here I would, as we were talking about before, that the output is it's quite short in a lot of ways. Here, for example, we want a more detailed exclusivity clause. This is not good enough. So then we can actually just ask it, hey, draft a detailed exclusivity clause that I can include in the MOU. So when we do that, and this is the concept where you have the base document, and then because of the context window, this actually goes through a very detailed, and it knows that it's exclusive negotiation rights clauses.
So you also use it for those specific clauses and for adapting them, for reiterating through them. Interesting.
Yeah, and then we could even change some details in a specific part of it. You copy that, paste it into the window, and ask it to make changes. And then this I would paste into my Word document that I keep separately and build the document this way.
Wow.
So that's how to do that. I mean, now we from originally just having 2 lines of text, we have a paragraph, 2 pages of text for the exclusivity clause, which we can then adjust the way we need. So then finally, what I wanted to do, we have all this. I need to get back to you, boss. I said 10 minutes. We're running out of time, so let's ask it to. I'll just ask it to draft an email to my boss explaining possible delay in timing because of FDI, and that I'll ask lawyers for a report. And I also mentioned that the MOU is attached. So again, this is example of doing an email, a different text generation. And then you see here that it puts placeholders where it expects the name. And then we have an email that's being drafted.
That's really great. And now you could ask it to shorten the email because I don't like to read long emails, for example.
Exactly. So and there are just if you want to shorter, make the email 2 paragraphs. So let's see if this works. It's a very simple prompt. It gets working straight away. It doesn't mind that you're put red line through its entire text. It just gets to work again. And
so after more or less 10 minutes, I get this short email that tells me, well, writing you the update, there is the potential delays due to the requirement of foreign direct investments, approval from Hungarian ministry. I think this is really a great outcome for this. Quick research, quick work. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I think looking at the time, we have to stop here, even though there's so much more you could show us, Henrik. But I think this really greatly shows the big variety of use cases of how you can use this model like ChatGPT. It's really up to you as a user, and why we really think it's so great if everyone starts exploring this, using this in their own way, finding their own best use cases.
Yeah.
Now,
and also really it doesn't give you like the perfect answer. There's still a bit of it.
Yeah.
Augments your ability and lets you work faster, but there's still some work to go there. There's a question here quickly about confidentiality. You see here, I didn't put any confidential information in there. Best practice is not to do that in ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Here you have just placeholders for the names or fake data is the way to go.
So I'm curious now, David, so we've seen now ChatGPT, a very general problem solver machine, but maybe I think the other thing that's really interesting here is also like the more professional market, software applications that are really focused on legal technology, on solving problems in that context. I know Legartis is doing great work there. David, I'm really curious, would you like to show us a bit how this looks like?
Yeah, happy to do so. Let me share my screen. Can you see this?
Yes.
Cool. Really good. Okay. So yeah, as you mentioned, what we've seen now with ChatGPT is very broad. It's a very good way to actually get started with AI. But if actually thinking about in your day-to-day work, there are legal AI solutions like Legartis out there that focus on specific use cases. What I'm going to show you is two things. One, I'm going to show you an example on contract review, and the other on data extraction, or in other words, contract analysis. What you see here is a contract that was sent to me. I opened it in Microsoft Word. I opened Legartis add-in, and what I'm going to do now is basically select the contract type. I'm going to tell the solution what rules need to be applied. So what are the company policies, and then the solution starts working. It starts to analyze the document on multiple levels, being that on the language level, being on the sentence level, or even more concrete, to find specific information within a sentence. And after a couple of seconds, I receive an analysis that shows me basically what I need to do. Are there any open tasks that need to be worked on or not? Before we actually go into the document, I want to quickly switch to those company policies, because that's where actually the prompting comes in. I have within Legartis the possibility to define so-called contract playbooks. So I can set up rules that are to be applied not only for one document, but actually for repetitive work such as contract review. So instead of typing in every time the very same prompt, you can set up here your own rules. And that's where Legartis is quite special. On the one hand, we have the ability to cover tons of topics that are not only pre-trained, but as well pre-tested. So we know that actually the AI will work. Let me show you 2 examples of setting up such clauses as such rules. I'm going to start with a simple one, being that now in this case, jurisdiction court. In the first 2 steps, I can tell the playbook is actually a jurisdiction court clause acceptable or unacceptable. In a second step, then being asked, is it optional or required? In a third step, I can tell the playbook what other information, what other requirements are to be taken into account. In this case, it's all about geospatial information. I have the possibility to define what's acceptable when reviewing a contract using this playbook. In this case, I defined Switzerland or Germany as is acceptable. I could add here now, let's say France as well, and add it to the playbook, and that would be acceptable as well. And then I could save it here. That's one example. I'm not going to save this now. Second example where we are actually where it's possible to define very concrete, very specific requirements in my playbook, and that's where the prompting again comes in, is on the topic or on the example notification periods for defects. There I predefined now a checkpoint that will be automatically checked for already before this webinar. The checkpoint basically says the notification period for obvious defects is no longer than 1 week from delivery. So very specific. And that will then be applied not only for one contract, but for every contract that is being checked with this playbook. So 2 examples, I could go on and on, but since I know that time is limited, I'm gonna jump back to my contract, and we're gonna, dive in here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna actually start with the example of jurisdiction court. Something the AI, the system checked automatically. Me as a user, I get the information. What is actually such a clause? What's the definition of that clause? I would get an instruction here if something need to be done, but in this case, it was automatically checked. My requirement was Switzerland or Germany, and it did find Frankfurt in this specific sentence. And so basically, I don't need to do any work on this clause. To give you another example, an open task, I'm being shown here that there are unacceptable clauses, that there are missing clauses, but as well, there are clauses that actually need correction. Coming back to my example of notification periods for defects, I see that there are 2 sentences here. My requirement is 1 week from delivery for obvious defects. We have here in the document, it says 2 weeks. I'm going to change this to 1 week. And we can see that the analysis starts automatically. And looking at this here, give it 1 more second. Yeah. So basically it realizes or understands that now the requirement is fulfilled. So basically, in short, contract review, not anymore manually to be done. You can automate a lot and support your people, not only in the legal department, but as well outside of the legal department. Coming back to the M&A space, one thing we all know is due diligence. And so analyzing not only one contract, but multiple. And so the need to actually extract certain information to understand what's in my contracts. I'm going to show you one example here, how Legartis actually extracts information. Let me go into here. And we can see that from a contract, it was able to extract not only the sentences, but the concrete information. And with that serves then as a basis to perform being it a due diligence or as Legartis has done in the past, post-merger projects where you need to know what's in your contracts and what action do you need to take. All right, Boas, I hope that showed us or showed the audience a little bit what a specialized legal AI solution can do. Coming back to...
Sorry, David, I have a question there for you.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, why would I use Legartis? Like, couldn't I just use like OpenAI, the AI I have access to there, and run my contracts through that instead? Why would I need that Legartis?
Well, for multiple reasons, but thank you very much, Henrik. Really good question. So one challenge definitely with OpenAI, at least to some companies, that's when taken privacy issues or data security into account, that's just a no-go. But even if you were to say that is a way to go, then you still have 3 challenges. One, you don't really, or actually 2, you don't really know if it works. So it's not pre-tested. You basically need to check every time, does it actually work? And that's the big difference to a specialized legal AI solution. Legartis is pre-trained and pre-tested. The second point is the usage of different technology. So we don't only use large language models, but as well traditional machine learning that allows us especially to work around the context windows. And thirdly, it's the functionalities. Although yes, ChatGPT works for a lot of use cases, it wasn't built specifically for contract analysis, contract review. So work that where you actually need to take into account the way people do their day-to-day work.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. But maybe jumping back to your solution, Henrik, can you tell us a little bit more about your law ChatGPT?
Yeah, so law ChatGPT is basic. So you saw it's a little bit complex to do these different scenarios that I was showing. There's a bit of learning that needs to be done. LawChatGPT.com just makes that easier. The templates and the prompting is already pre-done, pre-tested. And within a matter of seconds, you can start creating the documents and the content that you need. So that's basically this service that you find.
Cool. Really, really cool. So before we actually go into the Q&A session, and I know we only have a couple of minutes left, I just would like to draw your attention to, what is not changing? Oh, now it does. Yeah, okay. So draw your attention to two things at the very end. So if you are interested in actually working with a specialized solution like Legartis, please reach out to us. You have the possibility to, in a meeting, to sort out your challenges, and the way you can actually tackle those. At the same time, I would like to mention that we have a next webinar on the 14th of March, again on legal AI. The same time now, I would like to thank IMAA for the collaboration on this webinar. Nicole from IMAA, I guess, or I know you want to say a couple of words now as well.
Thank you so much, David. Appreciate it. My name is Nicole Jokic. I'm the Director of Business Development at the Institute for Mergers, Acquisitions, and Alliances. At the IMAA, we're dedicated to providing independent expertise to ensure successful M&A transactions. Whether you're navigating pre-deal negotiations or managing post-merger integration, we're here to guide you every step of the way through our education programs, resources, and support services. We do have some exciting upcoming events, including our on-site certification programs taking place in Zurich from the 11th to 15 March. This will feature our International Mergers and Acquisitions Expert Program, as well as our Certified Post-Merger Integration Program. We will also be offering these programs virtually live from the 11th to the 22nd of March. During these virtual sessions, we will also feature our Specialized Legal Mergers and Acquisitions Expert Program. So for any legal professionals looking to get a broader understanding of the M&A process through the legal lens, this would definitely be a great opportunity for you. In addition, we'll also be offering a free webinar on M&A and integration success within telecom. This will be taking place next week on March 7th at 12 p.m. CET. For more information regarding our programs and services, please feel free to visit our website at imaa-institute.org or send us an email at info@imaa-institute.org. Thanks again, and let's get back to the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Nicole. So in regards of time and Q&A, let's take two, three last questions before we end today's webinar. One thing I read repeatedly, and that question goes to the two of you, is memory. So what does ChatGPT actually remember? What's the how can one work with this?
If I may start really quickly. So this context window that Henrik also mentioned, this includes the input and the output. So the whole conversation you have so far and what it can write. This all together is this context window that these models can work with. Now, it's used to be quite small. By now, we have GPT-4 Turbo, for example, has a context window of 124,000 tokens. So that's like 300 pages. Gemini, Google has released Gemini 1.5, which has a context window of 1.5 million tokens. So tokens are more or less worth. So this token this context windows becomes bigger and bigger with time, and even GPT-4 Turbo can theoretically deal with 300 pages. However, even for AI, if you just put 300 pages of information in there, and there are these needle in a haystack tests when we try to kind of see whether the model is able to find specific information in those 300 pages, it is not an easy task even for AI. So working in smaller contexts and reducing or really selecting the information that you give the model is always very helpful.
Thank you very much. The next question goes probably to you, Henrik. So knowing the level of confidentiality, and you tackled confidentiality before already, how do you see data to be available to train AI? So me, a big company, how do I tackle this? How do I just set up ChatGPT and yeah, what do I do?
I think it's more so. The large tech companies are, I believe, allowing you to set up like private versions of this or a controlled version of these platforms, and then within that you would do your training as well. So that's a way to control it, and I think the way it's being done mostly now. For example, OpenAI and Microsoft have a relationship. If you listen to Microsoft, they say that their products are separate, and there's no problems with confidentiality there. So it seems that direction is where it's taken. I also see with Mistral, the European one, that there's companies offering hosting of these foundation models in a secure environment.
All right. So with that statement of confidentiality and way handled privacy, I would say we end today's webinar. I would like to thank the two of you for joining me today. Thank you very much for guiding us through not only the theory, but as well some practical examples within ChatGPT and legal AI. I'd like to thank my colleagues at IMAA for setting up this webinar, and I'd like to thank, last but not least, all of you for joining today's webinar. It was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to continuing some of the conversation in a different setup, and looking forward to the next time. Have a great lunch and a great afternoon.